by these parastatals should not be conditional grants. They should actually be additional part of the revenue, part of the equitable share that goes to counties as a result of the costing of those functions. So once you cost the function of library, the requirement is that the funds that were implementing that function should go to the level of government that is holding those functions. Yeah. And
if you can sum up, because we know the committee and what it's doing, we want to listen to the visitors more, kindly.
Can I finalize? This is a very important issue. Beyond the Gazette notice, you will have seen that the cabinet actually made a decision on winding up some parastatals. Chair, please allow me to raise this issue because the Senate needs to address it. Among the organizations that were decided to be departments within ministries are the same organizations that IGRTC has gazetted as requiring to be wound up. And in my view, that's another mortal sin. So instead of Kura being wound up, it is being said Kura should now be a department of the ministry. That is actually taking the function that Kura is carrying out and giving it to national government. That is an even bigger sin. So that is an issue that we must also, as the Senate, scrutinize to find out what the ministry has done in order to advise properly on this issue. And it's an issue that both COG and the Senate need to actually address. Now, on issues of strengthening the intergovernmental relations, I would hope that the department on devolution within the Deputy President's office, and I am hopeful because the Deputy President is a former senator, somebody who actually understands devolution. I would hope that they can actually assist in the national government actors understanding that Article 6 on consultation and cooperation was not about competition. It was actually about coming together, coming up with these intergovernmental agreements and implementing functions in a way that is not controversial. Just allow me to raise an issue on the issue of bursaries. Governor, the requirement under the intergovernmental relations provisions of the Constitution is that once you sign an agreement, the funds that should be, if you are handing over your function to the national government to implement it for you, you must actually surrender the funds for which you are going to implement that function. So even if you sign an agreement with the national government, the funds that you would deploy to bursaries cannot be funds from the equitable share. It must be the national government giving you funds, conditional grants, ceding that function to you and giving you the functions, the fund for which you can actually implement. So you will not be able to say that you'll continue to take monies from the equitable share that should actually be going to the devolved functions and deploy that money towards the national government. I think there are so many things I've left. I'm under pressure. Thank you.
Sorry. I'm really sorry, Chair. I'm very sorry you have tried. I want to give like 2 minutes to the representative of CAF at the County Assemblies Forum to give us the challenges that the county assemblies are facing, what the Senate can do, your relationship with the executive county governments, the issue of ceilings for county assembly recurrent expenditure. Let me give you 3 minutes to do that.
Thank you, Sessional Chair, Speaker, the leadership, honorable senators, your staff, and my colleagues at the panel. Wow. I stand in on behalf of programs that are talking about the chair of CAF who recently migrated to national government, standing here for the vice chair, who's the speaker of Machakos, who wasn't able to make speaker and choose here. My name is Chege Maura. I'm the Secretary General of the County Assemblies Forum. Very quickly on the key issues, maybe challenges. Let me start from a point of thanking the Senate, the Intergovernmental Devolution Committee that has handled the anchorage of CAF. We are on the same bus with COG and IGRTC, and you've been able to pass it, and now it's at the national level. I think that is a big step in terms of answering the question of how to address the disputes between the various intergovernmental agencies. Two, and very importantly, let me also laud Speaker Gathuri's, Deputy Speaker Gathuri's law on financial autonomy, which is in second reading, I'm told, is also done. I also want to convey a lot of thanks to you, because that by itself will also reduce a lot of challenges, Sessional Chair, between the counties, between the wars around the executive and the legislatures at the county level, because all our fights are usually around finances, whether it's Ward Development Fund, whether it's bursary funds, whether it's ceilings. So that will help us so that we stop queuing at the CEC Finances office, have our work plans go through a CEC Finance, taken to the COB, and then of course inflate the request so that the COB can reject it because there is no enough funds in CRA. So we want a clear channel. Once you'll be doing maybe the regulations around that law, we'd also be requesting Senate as now a way forward. You come up with a formula so that of the shareable revenue, what is going to the executive, what is going to the assemblies, so that at every disbursement from the National Treasury or own source, we know this is what we have and this is what we can be able to plan ourselves for the year end. The reason why the ceilings issue arise, the biggest challenge is because of the pending bills that roll over. Because as you end the financial year, everything that was supposed to be procured is thrown in there, and because of that hectic jam, it jumps over the following year. And so you now have to justify why it's a pending bill. If it's a pending bill, then it was not factored in the next financial year, so it ends up being a ceiling. We have to overstep the ceilings as they were set up for the next financial year. And so for me, the biggest antidote for this is to ensure that we get the financial autonomy in place. Number two, Senate comes up with a proper mechanism of who gets what, and at every disbursement, it be made so that by the fourth quarter, we are done, we're not going. I think it will reduce a lot of fights we have. Finally, on the issue of ceilings again, I think it's number 35, regulations 35 of 2015. Article 25F, if I'm not wrong, talks about what the Senate put as the ceilings for that should go to assemblies, which is at 7% or twice the amount of personal emoluments that goes to the county assemblies, whichever is lower. Now, whichever arithmetic you do, even at CRA itself, that money is never enough because you're just looking at slightly over salaries. Your oversight role is going to be enhanced if the county assemblies are able to stand and oversight at that primary level. And so I think as another way forward, maybe you need to look at those regulations and then see what are the bottlenecks that make us become stooges to the executive because we just want to survive. And I'm happy that there's so many former MCAs who happen to be in the House. And of course, being a House of Wisdom, this is something that you'll be able to understand very well. Finally, two final requests so that I am still within your 3 minutes. The county assemblies, all of them has a special seat for the senator. Please visit our assemblies, make it a habit to show up, because it gives us a direction of what the thinking of Senate is, number one. And then number two, it removes the big man syndrome. Size yake anakuja, and also is able to inject at a certain level, and we're able to pick it up from there. And very importantly, you are also able to appraise yourself. Why are we having the challenges we're having? I'm the chair Public Accounts Committee in Nairobi. When I got in, there were like 30 pending reports, you know. And so when we are trying to align ourselves with the PAC Senate, when they're calling in Nairobi, we are so far, you actually look like you're ahead of us. And then in terms of now churning the reports out, before you're done with this, these other ones have come. So if a senator is able to understand the challenges of a specific county, there are counties that the PAC reports are not even tabled in the first place, because maybe everyone is from the same party, maybe the other person has no say. And so those challenges, we're able to understand them from that level. Please, I beg that you're able to visit these counties as a Senate and also as individual senators. The other one is implementation of the laws as an oversight task. There are so many laws that we pass. The bulk of the laws that assemblies are passing are usually private members' bills, because executive does not. And I wish that maybe Senate takes a study and see, other than the money bills, other than the, the usual budget bills and all that, what other laws are they generating from government business? You'll see the bulk of them are coming from the private members. And of the private members, how many are being implemented? You see? And so if you're able to oversight that as well, you're also helping Kenyans realize, because no private member bill is used from the air. It's something that is pertinent to the public of that particular county. That also can be an oversight task that you can take up to check, and also to, as you're doing your oversight at the Senate level, you're able to follow through and see how is the executive performing its role in terms of legislative tasks that they're supposed to do. I thank you. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you very much, Chair Representative Kaf. Now, I know the chair of IGRTC is also a person who has a lot of information, but we will ask you to kind of please summarize in the interest of time. We need to know what IGRTC, the major role you're playing in the unbundling and costing of the transferred functions to counties, what measures are in place to ensure smooth transition, and monitor the implementation process with aim of addressing any expected challenges, and how the Senate can work with IGRTC and other stakeholders to ensure smooth and effective transfer of the corresponding resources. And finally, the disputes between governors and deputies have, all that. What is IGRTC role in addressing these disputes? What strategies would you recommend to ensure better collaboration and resolve conflicts between county executives? Thank you very much, and welcome.
Honorable Chair of the session, the Right Honorable Speaker, and I was here when the clerk advised that we follow the protocols already established. So, distinguished Honorable Senators and participants, I will just take 2 minutes. First, to answer what is more obvious, because it's already been mentioned, and then I can elaborate later. First, to the Senate Committee on Devolution. The fact of the matter is that in identifying all the functions that were in identifying all the functions that were to be devolved, we also delineated and bundled, delineated, and identified for transfer. We also, in the same rigor, and I say the same rigor because we constituted intergovernmental task teams where county governments were involved, COG was involved, State Department for Devolution was involved, the Office of Attorney General was involved, the Office of the President was involved, the Kenya Law Reform Commission was involved. We did identify what changes were required in law, and the whole exercise did identify some 96 pieces of registration which needed to be changed to give proper effect to devolution and therefore eliminate all those elements of overlaps and cases of where there was contradiction between the Constitution and the laws. And on that basis, that whole government team, meaning whoever is in government and had something to contribute was involved, prepared an omnibus bill, which I believe is still being looked at by the Office of the Attorney General because of drafting and so forth. But we did prepare a bill, an omnibus bill, which identified what needs to be changed. And I even state clearly that because we wanted to be very sure of what we were doing, we brought in such personalities as Justice Nyachai. We brought in others involved in the constitutional implementation like Professor Wanyande. We brought in the former PS Kebara, who is also a lawyer, to review not just the Gazette notices, but also that omnibus bill. So it is a job which was done quite thoroughly. And what I think we can do is agree that between us, we need to agree to follow up on that particular omnibus bill. But that's really what we did. And again, as I said, all parties, including the county governments, were involved. So, Honorable Madam Deputy Chair of that committee, please don't start afresh. Start from that particular bill, omnibus bill. Because as I say, everybody was there, Kenya Law Reform Commission, Office of the Attorney, everyone who really has something to contribute in law was involved in that process. The second point I would like to make is about, of course, the issue of transfer of functions. Yes, we gazetted. And in the summit, I think that's what was agreed, that's what is minuted, is that from July 2025, meaning the new financial year, we started the process of transfer of resources. Now, there are two options in terms of transfer of resources. As you know, in the initial activity of the IGRTC, involving all those other parties, including state departments and so on, we had identified that maybe in the range of 270 billion can be transferred to the counties through that process. But it was also at that point not lost on IGRTC that it cannot be, a fiat activity. It cannot be just the counties get that money outside a process which involves agreeing between the two levels, the process of handover of services being rendered now using that 270 billion, and the programs which are being implemented using that money. Therefore, from where we stand as IGRTC, from a technical professional point of view, since we are adopted a big bang approach to devolution, and given the paucity of resources that there are, and because we are not expecting additional resources from somewhere, from KRA, or from borrowing, or from development partners, to enlarge the national envelope, and because we don't want to disrupt the ongoing programs, it is going to be very critical that we go sector by sector, which is what we had done through that initial exercise.
But we need to go sector by sector, looking at in health, what are they doing in health which needs to be moved to the county governments and at what stage? I say that because, for example, of course, the HIV, malaria, and other program, the county governments do parts of it, but most of the money is controlled by the ministry. So we need to know what is the ministry passing all the money to the county governments because the county governments are involved, or is it parting with a bit of it and keeping a bit of it? That bit which they are keeping is, of course, the elements which we are saying need to be transferred. We need to identify them in the Ministry of Health and move them on that basis. Therefore, from where we stand as IGRTC, we see ourselves challenged to coordinate, again, a very inclusive participatory process involving both levels of government at the sector level to agree which resources are going to move, when, and the resources are not just about money. There is staff involved who are doing those particular functions. As you are very well know, your honorable senators, in the case of the process we went through in the case of libraries. We have to do the same, virtually the same, to identify the staff who are either redundant or need to be moved. And if they are going to remain in the national government, of course, then the national government needs to determine what it will do with them. So we are committed as IGRTC in mobilizing both levels of government and other stakeholders, and especially the National Treasury, to be involved in this process of what I will not call costing as an accountant in my distant past, but what is really a budget rationalization at the sector level. That's what is needed to identify the movement of resources has to be done at the sector level. It cannot be by a fiat, because I know that is not practical, and if we try to go that way, I don't think we are going to move. And if I am wrong in that respect, or IGRTC is wrong, let us agree then by what mode we can move it. Because I don't see a situation where the national government at the moment is just going to say, because we have moved these functions, move 100 billion shillings to the county governments without identifying which programs are affected, which staff is affected, which projects are affected, and so forth. So that's really, for me, are the two key aspects I would like to talk in terms of unbundling of functions. In terms of monitoring implementation, we are monitoring what has happened, for example, with libraries, and we'll be giving a report to that effect, and we'll be doing that. But on a much more systematic basis, what we have agreed at the Senate, at the IBEC, and at the summit, is that because the summit is supposed to do an assessment of performance by both levels of government, but that has generally not happened. This year, we have organized ourselves as IGRTC. Again, we are constituted an intergovernmental multi-agency team to start on a comprehensive baseline assessment of performance of devolved functions at both levels of government. And we emphasize both levels of government because, again, that whole script in the, or mantra in the Article 6 about interdependence has also to be recognized. That if county governments are not delivering on agriculture, you cannot blame it exclusively on county governments. It is because the two levels have to work together to agree what they are going to deliver in agriculture, and agree programs and what each one of the parties needs to do. And if bad policies are made at the center, long strategies are adopted at the center, if the capacity of county governments is not addressed, then of course the ministry has also a responsibility. So it is to that extent that we'd like to do that performance assessment. And on that, as I said, it's a baseline, comprehensive baseline performance assessment. And what we'd want is that every 2-3 years, every sector, there's a report on every sector on how they are performing in terms of delivery of the devolved functions. And again, as I quite like emphasizing, there is no exclusivity in the performance of these functions because policy legislation remains a national responsibility. Capacity building of the county governments also remains a responsibility of the national government. Therefore, even as we sometimes talk about counties failing, we cannot talk about counties failing without talking about the national institutions also failing.
Chair, kindly wind up.
Okay. My team had prepared quite an elaborate presentation. I've shared it with your secretariat. I would still want you to share it. Let me say 2 points as I conclude, Madam. First of all, in the areas I've just talked about, omnibus bill, the area of transfer of functions is going to be very intricate. It is about resources, so it's going to be necessarily political. There's no budget costing resource allocation process which is not political. We are going to need very active support of the Senate in terms of delivering, in terms of the rationalization of the budgets and the transfer of resources. We're going to need the support of the Senate also in this performance assessment because again, it is going also to be bringing very clear messages of what is not working in devolution and why it is not working at both levels of government. And therefore, the support of the Senate in terms of the political support is going to be very important. Finally, I think I would want to use this auspicious occasion on our speaker to say there are 3 fundamental challenges to devolution, which we need all of us to think about and see how we are going to address them so that the quarrels do not continue and infinitum. The first one is a fact that there is still a large constituency, a significant constituency of both political leaders and technical leaders in this country who do not embrace devolution. That is at the heart of it. And it is work which has to be done. It is homework which we all have. Those of us who believe in devolution, it is beyond technicalities. It's almost like a faith to be transferred to others. Because part of the problem, for example, therefore, between Senate and the National Assembly, of course, has to do with the resources. But if the National Assembly believed, and the part of the reason the governors do not get enough resources, but if everyone in this country who is a leader believed, and I've heard it from His Excellency the President, and the leader of the majority talked about it this morning, devolution has to work for this country to have the right speed of socioeconomic transformation. Because we are locked into that system. And therefore, once you believe that, then you know that whatever the counties require for them to perform well, you need to provide. But we are not there with many people. And part of it, which is the second issue, of course, partly it is understanding. There are people maybe who are even elected who have never bothered to look at the Constitution as far as devolution is concerned. And we have homework to do. And that is something really which I think, we all got to engage in. Finally, for the 2 levels of government, until they involve each other at strategic level in the sectors, at the point at which you are deciding this program is important as a ministry, at the point at which the county government is deciding in my area, this is what is going to be useful for developing agriculture, until they engage each other at the strategic level, not at the level of coming to solve problems, not at the level of coming to present each other with crisis, but through sector forums that are robust, where policies are agreed on, where strategies are agreed on, then the quarrels between the 2 levels of government will continue, and unfortunately, the Kenyans will have to pay the price. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What the panelists need to understand kindly is that we still need a few minutes for the plenary to engage. So, Madam PS, very, very briefly, if you can tell us what the State Department for Devolution has a central role in coordinating the implementation of devolution? What are the main challenges faced in supporting county governments? And how can the Senate and other stakeholders collaborate with your department to strengthen devolution and intergovernmental relations? And following the gazettement of functions to be transferred, what measures has the State Department for Devolution put in place to ensure counties are adequately supported in building the capacity to implement these functions effectively? And in line with the resolution to transfer the corresponding resources, how does the department plan to ensure the timely transfer of those resources and address any delays that may occur? What measures are being taken by the department and the National Treasury in the release of allocations to counties as per the county government's cash disbursement schedule that is approved by the Senate? Kindly, if you can sum it up so that we get engagement.
Chair of the session, the Speaker and honorable members, good afternoon. My name is Teresia Mbaika, PS State Department for Devolution in the Office of the Deputy President. And I will structure my remarks in two broad areas. And number one will be on the intergovernmental mechanisms. And number two will be on the legislation part of it, whereby you play a very critical role in this. Number one, in terms of legislation, I think we have conflicting interpretation of the laws by the different stakeholders in devolution. And the reason we find ourselves in problems of who is doing what is going where. The reason we have the county government having a very big problem with the COB, the auditor, because maybe the law is not clear on who is supposed to be doing what in the implementation of their mandate. So now we have a window to make things clear, and I like what Senator Muma has said. You have a very critical role when it comes to making laws. Of course, we have had incidences of amending the laws. For example, the intergovernmental law, which we were working on for a very long time, until the Senate took hold of it and ran with it. Now it is in Parliament, in the National Assembly. So we would really want to request the Senate, when it comes to lawmaking, you take a central role in ensuring that devolution is not affected by not just the pre-2010 laws which existed, but also the new laws we are making at the ministry's level, including the policies which are affecting implementation of devolution. So on that, we really want to have your support on this. But now that we have gazetted several functions which we are transferring to the counties, this is definitely going to call for a huge amendment of the many laws we have in existence. So any challenge we have, more than 10 years in devolution, all of us, we have learned where the problems are. So we have to be clear in the laws we make, and subsequent monitoring and evaluating how this is being implemented. Number two, and that also brings in the issue of the legislative agenda of devolution is not coordinated. We have, all of us, a responsibility around that. So on that one, we call upon the Senate to work very closely with us. If it means we give them resources to Senate to do it entirely, and we make things move, why not? Number two is on the intergovernmental mechanisms we have. From where I sit, I think they are very weak. We are not engaging adequately to ensure that we are working together as a government. Because my belief is there is no two governments, we have one nation, and we must make it work at all the levels. So when we work together in any process, it makes the work easier for all of us. I would expect we are not in the stalemate we are when it comes to the bill on the allocation of additional resources, because it means everybody is working in their silos until that last point when we have to be now together. What happens in the process of engagement? The issues around sharing of revenues, I've listened to Governor Sang talk about the different figures we have from different institutions who are very key in this particular subject. So you ask yourself, who is key in this? Which figure? What is the figure of National Treasury based on? What is the figure of COG based on? CRA and all the other players we have. So it means we have a problem in that. And Chair AJRTC has spoken around the sector forum. That is one of the difficult spaces we have found ourselves into. And the reason we find ourselves in this mess we find ourselves into. Because for the last 2 years, we have been trying to operationalize. Just to be specific, only a few sector forums function, but they only meet when there's a crisis. It's unfortunate, because that is not what the law anticipates. So, but the good news is the Deputy President, who we have, Professor, is very keen on matters devolution. Is very keen on ensuring the sector forums are operationalized and issues discussed quarterly as anticipated. So, Council of Governors, you are a key player in this, and I want to call you out. We must make sure the sector forums work. As the convener with the ministries responsible, we have to take it as a responsibility. We should not wait until we have a problem for us to meet, to engage. Otherwise, so many other things will have gone wrong, and we cannot blame it on any other person. The other question, Session Chair, you have asked me on what the department is doing to ensure timely disbursement of resources to the counties. I may not conclusively respond to that question, because I wish we had also National Treasury here, because that is a discussion which is constant in our intergovernmental forums, starting with IBEC. I would say, of course, we have, all of us know of the many challenges we find ourselves into as a government, but for me, I thought devolution is a priority. As we prioritize the other pressing issues like the debt issues we have to be deliberate on prioritizing resources for county governments. Otherwise, county governments which are not functional because of resources, entirely the whole government is not functioning. So National Treasury, there is a lot of commitment, and the Deputy President has intervened and convened the stakeholders when it comes to disbursement to county governments. And the agreement is, maybe now we are behind by a month or so, Mary, a month I think. So the National Treasury has assured the IBEC, the Deputy President, where we are domiciled, but getting to the next 2 months also will be on time. Disbursements will be made to the county government for them to function.
Otherwise, maybe what governor is not saying, they end up even borrowing in the banks to pay salaries. So that is a cost to the county government. So we are giving money for development, but they are using that money to pay interest to the banks. So, you know, those are the things we say so diplomatically. So I want to say it here. As Senate, we must be working with us. And you know we cannot force the National Treasury to also disburse money. But I know with your involvement, it is possible we do better. But we are still sticking to the commitment by the National Treasury. They're going to give us, county government, their monies to function. Maybe the last one, on capacity building issues and how prepared we are. Governor said the counties are ready to uptake the functions which are gazetted. But as a national government, we're also doing much to help our county government, specific with our program which we are carrying out on building capacities to the county government on the areas of finance, on areas of oversight, areas of public participation, and county assemblies, because our oversight role to our county government is weak, true or false? So we expect, together with the Senate, we can work on a mechanism of collaborating so that we do proper oversight by both the assemblies here and by Senate and of course ourselves. So we are complementing the preparedness by the county governments to uptake these functions, to help them build capacities. This is usually very continuous. They can call for us to help them. They can also have programs around capacity building to our county governments. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Yes. We are still trying to fit into the time available for us, so we'll adjust the program. We will keep the plenary questions pending. The panelists will be somewhere, and I hope you will still be patient to wait for whatever questions. We are going into the next session, which will be on the Senate oversight function, and I want to now invite, I will release you. I want to invite Senator Edwin Sifuna, the Senator for Nairobi, and the Deputy Senate Minority Whip to lead that session. Karibu, thank you very much.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Tuwapigie makofi wakati ambapo wanaondoka kikosi ambacho kimekuwa hapa. Mheshimiwa Peris Tobiko, asante sana. Mr. Speaker, I know we are really pressed for time. So we are going to hurry up the next session because it is a matter that is fairly familiar to all of us here. Honorable Speaker, let me start by saying my name is Edwin Sifuna. Thanks to you, they call me CBS these days. There is an initial that was added there. And there was an allegation that was made in the morning that Sifuna cannot be gentle. Honorable Speaker, I know the majority leader was addressing people outside this forum in attempts to make sure that he eliminates competition for other things, but now or in the future. But I want to guarantee you that I can. The first question is, as you know, we are going to discuss the Senate Oversight Fund. I, as the Senator for Nairobi, have the largest delegation, and these are the only people who can bear witness to my gentle nature, Honorable Speaker. So I wanted to just recognize the Nairobi delegation, because there were some jitters, Honorable Speaker, about operationalization and inclusion of our nominated colleagues in the Senate Oversight Fund. And I'm sure they can bear me witness that we are working on well. We have a full complement, Honorable Speaker, of 7 senators from Nairobi. The Honorable Tabitha Mutinda, who we have sent to a very important mission abroad as a delegation.
we pay business class tickets for Nairobi senators, Honorable Speaker. We have the Honorable Catherine Muma, who was here before me. The Honorable Veronica Maina, the former SG1, we call her SG1. Yes, she's a member of the Nairobi delegation. The Honorable Beth Siengo, the Honorable Betty Montet. You're not? But we saw some disbursements to your office. Okay, we will discuss that. The Honorable, the Honorable Karen Nyamu, who's also present here with us. And Honorable Speaker, thus far, I think that we need to thank the leadership of the Senate for your intervention in ensuring that we are the first Senate to actually implement this oversight fund. Because you petition for us in places that not all of us can go. And you have alluded to some of those meetings here earlier. We wish you well in those conversations that you have on the behalf of the entire Senate when some of us are not present. This fund has had a long journey, and for us to be taken through that journey, we are going to have two presentations here. I have been asked to ensure that the people who come to present here are as brief as possible so that members can have enough time during plenary to be able to share the experiences. But I can say from the beginning,